Man, what an episode I have for you today. I invited Mikael. Mikael is an owner of the Park, which is the co-working space I rent an office from. And I just knew that he is a very powerful entrepreneur. But just before he actually came to my podcast, I started researching what he actually does. And it turned out that he owns or founded 15 companies. This episode is priceless for anybody who's trying to develop the business, especially in Sweden, and also for people who came to Sweden as an immigrant, as foreigners just like me, and they're trying to do something awesome in this country. We talk a lot about that. I have so many great lessons that I took away from this podcast, so tune in, focus, and listen to that. But before you do, let me thank our sponsor.
This podcast is brought to you by Mediabro. Whether you need a marketing strategy, absolutely stunning branding design like a new logo, kick-ass website that will impress all your customers, social media design, content and advertisement, including creating videos and pictures for your brand's needs to attract new clients and spread your offer. We are based in Stockholm, and all you need to do is to go to mediabro.se, spelled mediabro.se, and contact us in any form that suits you. Remember, new customers are not gonna find you until you show up and make them see how awesome you are.
So tell me a little bit about your blog.
It's not
or podcast.
So basically, I'm struggling for 2 years with business in Sweden because, stupidly enough, in the beginning I decided not to look for the job, but to find my way through as an entrepreneur. And more or less, I wasn't very successful with that. And right now, I decided to open this podcast and also YouTube channel as a tool to invite interesting and smart people like you to help me with my situation and my business.
Great.
And it might also help somebody else. So it's mostly targeted to people. I call them entrepreneurial expats. So anybody, any entrepreneurs that are traveling the world, changing the place, just like I did.
Wonderful.
And you are a great piece of guest for the interview today. I was trying to look up some information about you, and I found that you founded, or you are part of 15 companies.
That could be true.
Do you even keep counting, or you're just doing? And
I think I'm mainly just doing it and initiate projects or hang out with people that starts a project, and all of a sudden you end up with a portfolio, and if you're lucky, there starts to be some synergies in between those companies.
Yeah. Okay. So first things first, you're Mikael, but please tell me how I should pronounce your full name.
Well, it's Mikael Ahlström, but everyone calls me Micke, so that's fine.
That's great. And just shortly, who you are and how did you end up in having all these ventures around you?
Well, I think I'm an entrepreneur at heart, pretty much. I really love the idea of taking ideas into concepts in different ways and see how they take new turns and twist and bend when they meet the target groups and users in order to spin in different directions. And so I've been born and raised here in Stockholm, Sweden, and traveled a lot around the world and got inspired from different behaviors and different things that I've seen and taken pieces with me and matched it towards the consumer patterns we have here and people I meet, and sometimes it just sparks ideas in conversations, and I take them to new places. So came from a marketing perspective, pretty much. Studied at Berg School of Communication here in Stockholm, and
what is that?
it's one of the biggest kind of marketing schools, I would say.
So it was your first company?
No, that was actually where I studied. So I didn't.
There.
I haven't started everything. So that's where I studied.
I misunderstood. I'm sorry.
No, but so I have kind of my background in marketing, but marketing turned quickly into digital marketing, and through that I started my first web agency many years ago, and from there it became obvious that marketing was no longer pushed media but more pulled and viral, and we transformed into kind of a viral marketing agency, and I bought a small company in Uppsala, north of Stockholm, and that was one of the number one companies on widgets, as it was called back then. And we became a viral campaign, a digital agency, but we were that for like 15-20 minutes before social media came, and we turned into more of a social media agency. But with social media it became also clear that we worked more and more with functions and tests and features that would spread viral. And therefore we turned more into some sort of a service design agency, creating all of those kind of functions. But with that we realized that our customer went more from the marketing management and into the CEO, because it was all parts of the company that needed these services and not just marketing. And after a while we realized doing these kind of functions and features and apps and everything, it became more important what app you produced, for what reason. And we started to move more into strategy and digital media strategy, working with those.
To do less and earn more.
Exactly. And right now we're more into also transformation, working with large corporations on how to transform their companies into being more successful in a more digitalized world. And all of a sudden the pieces of my little ecosystem starts to come together, since in my digital agency Brittany I work with these big companies, borrowing a lot of the methods from the startups, since I've also been part in Sub 46, and using the agile methods, the way they fund themselves, the way they organize themselves, marketing, everything. But also in order to produce the products, we work a lot with the entrepreneurs at the park. So here we have a network of more than 500 people from more than 200 companies. So altogether a fantastic strength in production and capabilities of actually taking strategies into the real live launched.
So how come I never worked with you yet?
Well, we should start. We've been talking about some potential projects, but you should talk to my project managers. They're closest to production.
But right now we are drifting away a little bit. I want you to bring us to these first moments, because in the beginning it was just you. Now you are talking as we. It's large thing around you, but in the beginning it was just you. And how did it happen that it grew so much and so successfully?
Well, I was I had a pause in my entrepreneurial era from 96 to 2001, when I had a digital agency before that, and I started already in 1994, really early. But we were bought by Icon Media Lab, a big digital agency, or not at the time big agency. We started when I joined them when they were 17 people, and in 4 years we became 3,000 in 22 countries all over the world. So it was a magnificent era on the way up and on the way down in the .com boom and crash. So when Icon Media Lab went bankrupt here in Stockholm, it was kind of depressing in one way, but it was also like an entrepreneurial explosion. Because all of a sudden we stood there with all of our insights and learnings and network and new capabilities and projects running. So very quickly I started together with some of my friends there, a digital agency, just 3 people. And we needed somewhere to sit. So I found a really nice place at Sveavägen, but it was connected with an internal staircase, the floor that we wanted. So I had to take both floors, which I couldn't afford. So I had to bring in some more partners and friends and colleagues and stuff like that.
How old were you then?
At that time, I was pushing 30, but I started my first digital agency, I think, at 22 or something like that.
Yeah, because when I'm thinking, okay, you wanted the office, you liked some spot, but it wasn't available. You had to rent 2 floors. And I mean, like, how big balls do you have that you just like... okay, let's do it and let's find some other people, and suddenly you end up with the whole co-working spaces with 2 localizations and a big company, 500 people network.
Yeah, and we're pushing 1,000 people this spring, opening up our third.
I heard about
so
that.
It's really testing the guts all the time and trying to maneuver in this, but I think I really love a good opportunity. So when I see it, I really want to find the ways to make it happen, and I bring people from the network around me into to just doing it and finding ways to get things launched.
Okay.
Learning by launching, step by step.
How often do you fail, though?
A lot of times. Most of the times, I would say, actually. And I think that's where the learnings come up.
But never felt so hard to get burned out?
No, but failing hard enough to burn every once in a while. And I think that's also kind of an important part, and I think it's a part of the strategy to rather test and rather do and rather allow people to take charge and run things the way they want in my companies, because I'm great at starting things, but other people are so much better at running things.
Yeah.
So I want to start the next thing, and therefore I need to rely on people that really have the courage to and the mandate to run as they wish. And if it works, that's amazing. If not, I will come back and try to fix it, and then we'll try
Cut
another
some
time.
heads,
Yeah,
kick some asses, and just repair what was failed.
yeah. But that is a much more important strategy for me than clinging on to the projects and the companies and try to do them fully myself all the time. I'm on a very clear personal journey to step back, and step back, especially from leadership. I really like to start things and create the enthusiasm around it and make things work. But when they're working, my role is to step back, allow other people to run it, and my ambition is to work in this fantastic ecosystem of hundreds of entrepreneurs with large corporations and their challenges, with students from Hyper Island and their learning journeys, and the startups from Sub46 and the Park, and work within that network with all of those opportunities and potential partnerships and innovations, and not coming to work every day trying to run that ecosystem. That's someone who has trained to do that and who likes to do that is much better equipped to take on that role.
I have the like water full of questions coming to my head right now. Let me just reset the camera and I'll be right back.
Sure.
In the part 2. Welcome to the second part. And out of all the questions that are rumbling around my head, I want to ask you the most important thing for me right now. So when you were starting, you were already like 3 times bigger than my company right now, which is just me. You and 2 other people, right? So how do I, based in Stockholm, in a similar industry like you were starting, how do I do a next step? How do I find these people to work with me, to help me run the company? And how do I move forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think that you are in a much better position now than I was then. We at that time came from a very kind of strict agency structure where everything was about companies. And in these last 10, 15 years, it's turned to the importance of the individuals. And the power of the whole gig economy and freelancers whose best kind of asset is the ability to connect with others and shape teams that solves larger challenges, and then disconnect and form new teams for other challenges. So I think right now we're in the middle of a huge phase of where freelancers with networking capabilities of finding networks to solve consumer needs or large corporations' needs, and with the power of networks to solve production. And I think you are an intermediate right in the middle of that, with networks in both ends, with therefore the muscles to solve big challenges. So I think that's all trends are in favor of that, and that's also a decision I took in my own agency to go from being a production agency with full staff of more than 30 people in the team to just be a strategic agency of 7, working with big challenges, and then putting together the right teams to solve the right solutions.
That sounds great, but as always, it's easier said than done. I mean, if you were to give me some advice, where to go, where to start, who to talk to, except of talking to you, of course. I think your asset is that you have
you know digital, and you know production, and you know how to project manage, and you also have a network with muscles on how to actually deliver something and launch something. With that, I think there's one kind of hard way, which is to enter the end client and talk to the end client, because those structures are usually quite rigid, and it takes time before they need something to be produced. So you need to have really like a big network and a lot of those conversations going simultaneously.
So you mean to go to these companies that need some advertisement or?
Yeah, I mean, I think the big, I would say the big mistake a lot of entrepreneurs do is that they believe so much in their product and so much in what good it can do in different situations, and then they identify the client with, in their mind, a clear need for that product. And unfortunately, that's a long sales journey. You usually need to educate the client. They need to finally get it. And when they have gotten the insight of the need, they need to identify a true need in its own organization, and then go through budgeting processes and everything. So it's kind of very, very long, costly and frustrating journey for the entrepreneur to kind of run that journey. So instead, I think it's important just to aim for the first hello and plant seeds in many, many minds that you are there. And when the need occurs within the client, make sure that they at that time think about you. And so therefore the end clients are good, because it's good to have a relationship with them and they are the ones who have the needs. But it's also better to find the nodes. In your case, I would say the different agencies, or in PR or production or advertising, or whoever who has their own relationships with hundreds of clients that constantly have different needs. And so it's more cost effective to be a great partner to them and subcontract the delivery to their clients' needs. Then you can have a relationship with 1,000 clients through 10 people.
That's true, but it's not so easy when you live in the era where every second person is a creator of some kind, and you just swim in a huge ocean of people who basically do the same thing as you. And plus, I come here to this country where I don't know the culture so good. I hardly know any of the language.
Yeah, I would say the language in Sweden can be an issue, but in most cases it's probably not. At Hyper Island, for instance, we have English as corporate language for all students in all programs, and have had so for probably more than 10 years. In Brittany, we have English as corporate language, and it was just until very recently, a few months back, we translated our website into Swedish, because it's always been in English. So I don't think that's a huge challenge, I would say. It's always a little bit challenging in social aspects and stuff like that. But in the startup scene, I would say that English is more than the norm.
Yes, but it creates the kind of a barrier
Yeah.
of trust from client to me.
Yeah.
It's for me, it's much easier to have somebody who speaks Swedish to talk to the client, because I know that that person will get much further than I would in most cases. And that frustrates the hell out of me.
Yeah, but I think you can also turn that to your advantage. I would say, especially with Hyper Island, I think when Swedish clients come and meet Hyper Island student groups that speaks English, it's an add-on. It's something that they talk about when they get home to their families, and they were part of an international experience, and it was kind of exciting and more global and everything. And I think since you also represent a global phenomena with having production capacity organized from other parts of the world, it's much more believable that you are here and that you represent that phenomena rather than a Swede.
You, as a Swedish person born here, you hear that there is a production company in Poland. Don't you have this a little bit of doubt about the quality, or I don't know, like the trust issue, that you would rather spend more for a Swedish company?
I would say yes, probably in different aspects, but I would say if you're professional within these fields, I would say the biggest worry that you should have is the distance. And the distance is equally tough if you're doing it from Sundsvall or Gothenburg or Malmö, trying to kind of organize a contractor with a delivery when you can't physically meet and hang out. And that makes a lot of outsourcing projects challenging, because there's a bigger risk of misunderstandings and things like that. Yeah. But the distance isn't a problem for you since you're here.
Yeah.
So in relation to your role, much more safer to identify a project from a distance or an outsourcing project with you, since you are in the city and represent the dialogue with me as a client. So I wouldn't I think that's a low risk compared to having a total outsourced to an agency in Sundsvall.
Of course.
Even though if they speak Swedish or not, that's not a part of the challenge, I would say. There's always some cultural challenges in understanding each other and everything from negotiations and stuff like that can play a game, but you start to know the Swedish culture bit by bit. So from that perspective, I think you're also a good partner in that.
But how would I find partners in Sweden as a freelancer that work with me on some projects, or like people that I can bring in to help me like daily?
I mean, I would say that projects nowadays are usually very complex.
Okay, maybe we have a misunderstanding of the level of the problem that you're solving and I am solving.
Yeah.
You're probably solving some problems for the Swedish bank or ICA or something like that, and I'm solving a problem for bakery and coffee shop or something like that, right?
Yeah, but I would say that the structure of the projects are more and more complex, because even if I'm just running a small bakery or so, if I need a presence, I need a presence for a reason. I needed to attract some leads and to build some brand, or to even sell some stuff. And so I need probably connectivity to transactions, to Klarna. I need some experts in SEO. I need some UX and design, and I need production and hosting and everything.
Yes, but when we are talking about the small thing, like the small bakery won't pay me, 50,000 crowns to build a custom design for WordPress. They will want me to get some ready WordPress theme, adjust it, install the Klarna plugin, and that's it.
Yeah, but probably either, I would say, they would come to you because they say, we don't have a website, or we have an ugly website and we need a prettier one with a Klarna connection. Or they come to someone else and say that we want to be better in search engines. And therefore, after a while, okay, now we're better in search engines, but our website does not perform. And when you're there, you can't shop, so we need a Klarna thing. And just in that, there's 3 probably partners involved. One SEO person, perhaps a designer or something that they know, and you guys that also do design, but production, and perhaps some Klarna implementation person or something. And I think you guys could have a lot to gain if forming those collaborations together, even though it's on small projects. It's still the client's business is moving heavily into digital. Even if you're a bakery or a small store or freelancer or whatever, and the money you before used to make advertising in the local newspaper, or handed out flyers in the mailboxes in apartments, you now need to take that money into the digital channel, and that's a learning journey for those kind of clients. But they start to understand, and you understand, that they make a lot more money if they take the step fully into the digital space.
Yeah, they understand, but their level of understanding is that, I have a friend who did something on Instagram and suddenly he has clients. Can you do that for me?
Yeah.
They that's it. That's what they know.
But probably they that means that you also need a social media person in the network, and perhaps one of the things that we do successfully with the large corporations is to educate them. And because I tried for years to be visionary about the possibilities of digital, suggested all kinds of apps and solutions, but it's more important to get them to understand the new landscape. If they understand the new landscape, they will see the reason for the app. Without that, it's you're not a good strategist if you try to drag them into starting with something that only you see the reason for. So perhaps it could be an interesting way to invite people identify those 4 or 5 competences that are the keys to successful digital business life as a small player, and I invite those potential customers and show them the new landscape.
Okay, so what you said, to identify these competencies and probably find partners for it. Like, basically, I am skilled to prepare the branding for the company that comes to me, and then to create the website for them with shop, to design the social media, let's call it messaging, and then to create the content, video, the photographs, and so on. But I'm the only, like, I'm one player in my company right now, and as I can bring some people online from Poland to design work for branding and website, the rest rather has to be done here, which is photography, the content, the movie, the Swedish language, copywriting, and so on. So I need to find partners here.
Yeah, and I would recommend to find partners not only good in production, but good with their own network of potential clients. So that you, together with them, can reach a much more larger number of clients, and they can get business from you, and you can get business from them.
Yeah, that's perfect win-win situation.
Yeah.
And I'm just trying to drag out from you the answer on where to find these people.
I mean, I think the easiest way, I would say, is to start with actual projects. So even though perhaps that you feel that in this project that I just, after hard work, finally got into the agency, where I can do 100% myself, the branding, the social media, the SEO part, the implementation to Klarna, and also the production of the site with my team in Poland. Perhaps a thought would be that for this project it's more valuable if you bring in some other contractors to do the other parts that is not your super core of the production. And all of a sudden you have invited 5 people to do a piece in your project, and with a bit of luck 2 of them will come back and ask you to be the production partner or the branding partner of their next project. So perhaps if you give them a bait, and you give some, and that will probably gain some.
But do I look for them on Upwork or in, I don't know, Hyper Island by emailing?
I mean, it's a lot easier to get social media traction and attention in different forums and things like that. If you say that I'm looking for freelancers to a project, than if you say that I'm a freelancer and I'm looking for projects.
That's so true.
So it's a lot easier, and you're a much better guy in those forums if you provide people work than if you ask for work. So you could allocate some of the budget in your projects and put it out on external partners, and perhaps see that as your media budget.
Yeah. Okay, that was a great conversation. Let's maybe change subject a little bit, and use you as a guest here to give more value just in the third part in a second. So, welcome to the next part, and tell me, what are you up with right now, nowadays?
Well, now we are working in 3 different directions, pretty much. Number 1 is to scale up the agency, Brittany. We've been scaling it down and finding our core in strategy, and now we now we've found it, and it's working really well, and we need to do a lot more of that. So I have a new CEO in place, working with that. And on the other hand, we're expanding the park, starting with the Södra location at Södermalm, with actually doubling our capacity from 500 to 1,000 members.
Impressive.
And it's a really cool place, and already some pretty cool new members. Not official yet, but I'll be happy to talk more about that later. So it's going to be a really, really cool place, and also with a big cafe in the street floor, or by the street, open for the public. And half of that will be business lounge for members, with an internal staircase up to the first floor, which is an activity-based mobile and fixed seat area, with a staircase up to the second floor with your own rooms. So it's like a journey from the cafe working entrepreneurs into member areas, recruiting their first people up in the first floor, and then getting their own space on top. So that's really an interesting area. And then I'm also, based on this ecosystem, continuing putting effort in working with my own startup. We've been doing a travel portal that we stepped out of about a year ago, which was a really fun and cool case, called cruncho.com. And now we're in 2 projects, one in gaming and one in food tech.
Food tech, wow.
So that's very exciting, and I'm hoping to allocate more and more resources into our own ventures in different entrepreneurial journeys, both our own ideas and also together with other entrepreneurs.
How don't you get lost in between all this? Like, I mean, every venture of that needs your attention in some level. Not only attention, but specific tasks, events. And I can imagine it increases exponentially. So how don't you get lost in between?
Well, I think Trello helps.
Yeah. Is that your main tool for organizing?
Actually, we have a Trello board for every management team. So, and I also have a Trello board for the group with priorities. So I'm focusing to be part of, but not necessarily that involved in the management of the different companies. But every time when it's not working, I'm heavily involved.
So do I understand good that you start these ventures, you find people to run these ventures, and then you tell them, don't bother me? No, and then you go forward.
I'm really focused on trying to get as much mandate as possible, and
what do you mean by that?
For the people running the different companies, to really get to run the companies in their own way. And as long as it's profitable and growing, I will stay away.
That's great.
If
That's
it's
really
not,
great.
then I will join with extra resources and step in, and that can be uncomfortable. But
For them or for you?
For them, because I'm very decisive on how to fix things. So I have one mode when I'm super open and everything is allowed, as long as it's growing and as long as it's profitable.
But then you smash the door open when something's going wrong.
I mean, failure is great along the way, but if it's in long term, either challenge the cash flow or the culture, then it's not okay.
Is the culture or cash flow more important for you?
Culture, actually.
Mm-hmm.
I can handle tiny cash flow, even negative. But if culture is not working, or if quality is not working towards the customers, then I will fiercely step in.
So what's your ideal culture?
I think it's a combination of a very inclusive leadership, where everyone can have their say and be part of the long-term goal, and get everyone's energy into finding solutions, which is very much what we also teach at Hyper Island, and very much part of the startup scene. But I also think in a combination that the CEO or the leader of the company has the final say, and needs to, because that is also the person who is responsible for everything. So there need to be one person who can actually, based on all the inclusive thoughts and the insights from the whole team, someone needs to make the decision and take the company forward. So I think a combo of those different kinds of leaderships.
Sounds cool, really. So did I hear good that when you have some public speeches, you like to talk about some futuristic stuff?
Yes, well, I think I really like the future. I really like to hang out in the future.
So what
mentally.
is the future?
Well, I have had the luxury of running a future workshop with the students of Hyper Island for almost like 20 years or 15 years at least. And it's interesting to see when the buzzword starts to appear on the chart, and then when they get closer and more intense as the reality is moving in towards the future, and how they after a while just becomes a natural part of our everyday life. So I think in one way we can have all kinds of buzzwords like AI and the drones and the 3D printers and filter bubbles and all kinds of stuff of the future, but it's not going to be really interesting until they are implemented as everyday ways of doing things in our lives. That's when they start to have a huge effect on society.
Okay. Will AI kill us?
AI probably will. No, I think...
How much time do we have?
I think we have quite a lot of time, and I think AI is one of those things that we have so many kind of thoughts about, as it is so futuristic and so, but it just sneaks into our lives, and it's already there, of course, and it supports us. Without AI, we would not find the nice restaurants. We would not find our flight tickets or whatever.
That's a nice kind of AI. I don't mind this one, but then I see this Boston Dynamics robots, and I hear some, I don't know, stories on how powerful Google is and what they can actually do to us.
Yeah.
And I'm freaking out. Like,
of course, now you're pretty young, but I heard someone say that all the technologies that exists when we're born, we take totally for granted.
Yes, we don't call it technology anymore.
No, it's just there.
Yeah.
Technologies that appears around when we're 20 or something, we build our careers upon.
Mm-hmm.
Technologies that enters our life when we're 40 plus, they are the things that going to be the end of the world. So, and it's always been like that. It was like the books were going to kill the youth generation. They were going to get stuck in their books. And after a while, it was the radio, and then came the horrible TV. And all of a sudden, we just accepted all of those things as a part of our culture. We're now scared of the next thing.
Yes, but it used to be, 200 years in between of these events.
Yeah.
And now, like, it's three years and the world looks completely different.
Yeah, I think...
And it just speeds up.
Yeah, I don't think I'm that scared of any technologies. I'm rather scared of the speed itself.
Mm-hmm. Or people using this technology.
Yeah, or people using technology. And I mean, we will probably have some big crashes, or we've had a bunch of big crashes.
Mm-hmm.
We had some huge crashes. I mean, financial crashes, security breaches. We've had huge integrity breach with Cambridge Analytica, and we've had whole election tampered with in the US. And
the whole bunch of stuff that we don't even know about.
Yeah, so I mean, but still we don't do anything about it. Still we don't really care. We just, because the services are still providing us with good stuff. So even when democracy itself is being tilted and threatened, we're okay with that because we like our apps.
Yeah.
So where the question is then, how big of a crash do we need in order to change our behavior?
But is it even stoppable?
Probably not. I mean,
exactly.
I think we need to deal with the development and manage it, and then we could perhaps think of different ways on how to create a good society based on all of these tools.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the Industrial Revolution wasn't such a good idea after all, looking back with...
wasn't such a good...
No, I mean, it's killing the planet with the climate. So, I mean, it was a really bad idea, but still kind of unstoppable. And we like our stuff. So perhaps we now just need to find a way to handle it with a little bit more responsibility, with new insights to shape the world that we want to have and need to have. And that might be the same thing with all of our digital tools. If you just look at a projection of how society is going to be, with everyone is doing even more social media, less human interaction, and more AI and all of that, it's of course a scary place. But in the end, it must be us choosing what kind of place we want, and let technology support us in that.
What if the technology will choose it for us?
And it is already doing that.
That's true. Like just the fact that I decide to go to this restaurant, not the other one,
Yeah.
it's not my decision, more
No.
or less.
It was a long time ago we took those kinds of decisions. It's an algorithm
Yeah.
doing that for us based on all kinds of things and not always in our own interest.
Yeah, and I mean, the next step is probably our bigger integration with the technology.
Yeah.
Like they say that 2028 will be this huge moment where of this integration, like how is it called even? Singularity,
Yeah.
I believe. And what's next? Like, what if... Okay, maybe I'm going too far.
No, go ahead.
But I mean, if we have like 10 or 15 years of, quote, normal life left, then what's the point of bothering and building companies and struggling? Like, let's screw it and go to some islands and have some fun, you know?
Well, could be a good idea, but it's bad if you make a bad
Calculation.
bet.
That's true. That's true. But what's your take on that?
I mean, I think once again that we look at this kind of scary digital life in some ways, but I believe that the analog world will still be an important part of the future life as well. And my bet is rather that technology will increase a lot in our lives, but we will see less and less of it. Right now we look a lot at screens, we double click on a lot of buttons, and we interact so much with technology because technology is filled with friction right now. We need screens, we need buttons. It's a hassle to order a flight ticket or whatever.
Yeah.
When technology fixes itself and it's voice-based and it's AI-based, I don't need technology in my life. Technology will kind of...
Because you don't call it technology anymore.
No, it will support me having a majority of my life in the analog world. And I think I kind of like that part of the world where serendipity is rather supported by algorithms, and I tend to have more luck in my life. I go to fantastic restaurants, I meet great people, but I don't swipe on apps all day in order to have those interactions. It just happens.
Yeah, of course. And like, aren't you scared that in the future, like right now, to have a great experience in the restaurant, you have to actually move your ass and go there?
Yes.
But we are not so far away from having the same experience mentally through some Google artificial intelligence, like and artificial reality kind of stuff, and you can just still sit at home, and basically the computer has fun, let's say, and you're just experiencing the artificial stuff.
Yeah, and I mean that was what we saw like in the 90s with all the computers in the basements, and we thought that the digital life was a life we spent alone in our apartments. But of course the digital world became mobile, and then we choose to step out of those basements and into the world, and probably we will not long to get back into that if technology can support us. Of course there will be a glitch in history perhaps when VR experiences are so much more amazing, but it will take a few years and they will be in a lens, and it will be even more amazing if it's blended with the reality. So I think I think the world, at least as it is now, with fresh air and blue skies and nature and nice city life, will so far outbeat most digital experiences. And only if we manage to crash the real world, VR will be a great haven to sneak back into an air-conditioned cell somewhere and consume a
I know, like
nice life.
You are very positive about that, and I'm happy for you.
Well, I think the brain will be the boss. So I think I'm brought up in a world where I will kind of always appreciate the analog space more, but if another generation will enjoy another space more, the brain is the boss, and our job probably as humans are to please our brains and get impressions and have fun. And if digital tools are better to do that than the real world, maybe they will win. But I don't think I'm a part of that generation. And I don't think the digital tools are that good yet. They might be.
They might, and I think they will be pretty soon.
Yeah. And still, it will be our own choice. And
I'm not so sure, because it can be a domino effect. So if somebody decides to like get some part of the brain implanted and have some super intelligence implanted into the brain, even though I don't want it, I will have to still do that to maintain in the world.
Yeah. And I mean, and that's super true. And once again, we're already there. I mean, we can talk a lot about that people and humans are great and amazing creatures. And but if we're going to recruit a new manager or something, and they are kind of the best human you've ever met, and in the end of the interview they say, but I've chosen not having a phone. I don't do digital. I'm a total analog person. That's a crappy individual with really low capacity to do anything at work. Mm-hmm. So we're all, even though we don't operate it in our brains, but still the fact that the digital layer around us, with the phone in our hand and the computer in symbiosis with our real us as humans, that's the new kind of superpower that we have as humans. So without those tools, we will probably not last a week at work.
Yeah, that's true. Like in a way, with all the iPhones we have in our pockets, there is some kind of a singularity. Yeah. Already.
Yeah, definitely.
We don't exist without Google.
No, not even like, as private persons.
I wouldn't be able to go through the Stockholm without Google Maps. Seriously.
Yeah. Yes.
So that's kind of true. I am already there.
Yes, you are already there, in a lot of sense. And I think it's just as I said before, it sounds like scary, and it's a horrible future, and then all of a sudden you realize, oh, that was yesterday. Yeah. And I've accepted it, and I think it's pretty normal, and I think it's pretty nice. And we've culturally kind of established a new level that we think is fine. Still, we're super scared, once again, of the next level. Yeah, until we've taken that into cultural acceptance.
Just 10 minutes ago you said that you think that AI will kill us one day.
Well, if the AI, like in the movies, are are kind of aiming for the best result. We need to understand that the humans are not part of creating that best result.
Once I read about the theory that there is an evolution and we came out of apes and so on, and we might just be a step to give birth of another super intelligence creature, and we will just extinct and they will move forward. Is that scary or is that positive? I mean, is that scary that humans won't exist, or is that positive because we will give birth to something bigger?
I mean, we will always give birth to the next generation, and the next generation will always be a little bit different. And with this new technology layer, it might take a leap again. And who knows?
Yeah, it used to be a million years, and now it can be just one generation.
Yeah, the scary thing is if it's within a generation.
Yes. Because, I don't mind what happens in 100 years or 200 years, but
200 years is fine. 100 starts to be scary.
What if it's 20 years, you know?
Or 6 quarters.
Anyway, we stepped into
the far, far future.
Yeah, let's not go there. Let's come back here for a second. Where do you get your inspiration from?
I think I have the luxury of working a lot with teaching and speaking and doing workshops and hanging out with a lot of brains in learning journeys. And I've also designed the way I do it so that I don't provide any truths. I rather facilitate processes. So when I do these sessions, I learn as much myself. So it's a fantastic luxury of being kind of confronted with tons of different challenges from all kinds of aspects every day with clients and students and colleagues, and thinking a lot of new thoughts every day in those kind of crossroads between industries and departments and roles and technologies. And sometimes it's almost like a curse, because you see so many new opportunities and so many new ideas and concepts, and you just need to find the time to get them out there in practice and prototype. And so I think I've turned my day job into a huge conference. So I get a lot of inspiration from just being out there and doing what I do.
Okay, speaking about a day job, for a person that have done and still is doing so much, what does it take? How much do you have to, or do you get to work?
Well, I think it differs a lot. Every time when I'm kind of transforming a company, then I'm working a lot more. And when I'm working with leadership, I'm in the organizations, I'm working a lot more. But I'm fairly balanced in term. I think I work a little bit more than the average person, but I have a high variety of work, and half of it I would not even define as work. It could be a hobby or an interest or just amazing explorations in mines and travel around the world and meeting different people.
Yeah, of course.
Looks more sometimes like a very, very interesting vacation.
You like what you do, right? And then you get to this point where it blends.
Yeah, it blends a lot, even though I'm very clear that I'm moving away from the musts. Because working a lot and working with musts is really hard. But working where you have the energy at the moment, it's no problem to work more. So the musts are best handled in the organization's own structures, and then I can try to be an add-on, running around in between.
Yeah, working on business, not in the business.
Yeah.
Do you even cook for yourself?
Always, almost.
Really?
Yeah.
So you get to find the time to actually prepare food for yourself instead of just eating out.
Yeah, definitely.
That's surprising for me, because I expected for the person that does so much that it's just basically waste of time.
Well, I think depends on how you define time and how you define waste. But
I mean,
think
1 hour of your time is pretty valuable thing. Like, I would, if I were to hire you, I wouldn't afford like 15 minutes of your time. I'm so grateful you came here. And then you spend like an hour a day, like, cooking your chicken and salad or something, instead of going to a restaurant. Why do you do that?
Well, I think first of all, value is not it's not about doing business all time of the day and optimizing some return of investment. It's of course about having a good time in life, and I think you need to do what's fun and what just enhance your life in relation to friends and everything. So it can, even if you're an entrepreneur, you can't produce and sleep in an effective way. You need to design, and that was one of the things that I took a decision on many years ago, to kind of do a life design. So making
Please tell me more about that.
Well, making sure that the infrastructure you have at work would not steal your life, but rather be support the life that you want to have. And I'm taking every chance with. If I get to do a workshop in Brazil, I take a few extra days before and after, and I take the chance to meet some friends over there. And
please take me there with your assistant.
Absolutely. But just making sure that this designing, and I think the park is definitely a part of that. I could have chosen to take a smaller office that day in 2002. One that I could afford only with me and the agency. But that was not the kind of life I wanted. It was so much more fun to take a little bit of risk and get a bigger office with more colleagues and more meetings and more customers flowing through and building a network. And that was more of an enjoyable life at work. And with, of course, an expanding the park, it's an infrastructure that supports life. And all of a sudden now we have our own little cafe here, so at least for lunch I don't need to cook. We can there's food in the office, making life a little bit easier. So I think just having, especially for an entrepreneur, you have the opportunity to decide a little bit more how and when to work. And it's much better, I would say, if you take your whole life into that account and design something, a blended life that supports your overall vision.
Mm-hmm. So what's your pain right now?
My pain right now is speed. I see the speed of all the opportunities ahead of us, and the challenge of getting the same speed to match our internal processes.
Mm-hmm.
So even though we're kind of agile and work fairly fast, of course the surroundings are moving so much faster. So how do you deal with that? I think that's my challenge right now. It would be great to just pause time and get like 5 years to prepare everything and kind of build the stuff that you want, and then with that new infrastructure start the clock again and go. But so we're building the airplanes as we're flying right now.
Yeah, but with this, what you said is somebody could do that the same, and he could take 10 years for preparation outside the time.
Yeah,
I think that it's like this, how is it called, like this broken circle, that okay, we are on the same timeline and it's just what we do with that, right?
Yeah, but I mean, just with the park has been a nice little kind of co-working industry for 10 years. Mm-hmm. And 2 years ago it kind of just exploded. Mm-hmm. And the industry is moving really fast, and the other players are moving really fast, and it's super exciting. And we need to mobilize our energy in order to keep the same pace. And we were a very early adopter and perhaps even a disruptor in that industry a few years back. So we need to get our speed up in order to keep that position or take our community into the same kind of developments with the community, with the cafe, with all kinds of new digital tools and matchmaking processes and events and everything that we want to take to the next level. So much opportunity and so little time.
Yeah, that's the biggest pain.
Yes.
Of course. I appreciate so much your time.
Well, thank you.
And this conversation, it was amazing.
So likewise, very nice conversations from pains to magical futures.
If you were to leave us with two things, one would be advice, let's say for a 27-year-old you.
Mm-hmm.
And the second thing I would like you to say is what you want to be remembered by from this interview. Some one line from you.
I think if I had a good talk with my 27-year-old me, I would order me to form a board of directors for the company. Styrelse, board of directors. Mm-hmm. So not just the management team, but to put together a board for the company. I've seen the power of that, and it's so easy for an entrepreneur just to fix the stuff him or herself and not have the advisory group there to support you to see beyond the horizon and calmly take the right decisions and be there as a long-term structure for the development.
Would you do that more formally?
Yes, definitely. So but with that in place, it's so much easier to get the right direction. And I wish I'd done it 10 years before I started to do it. And I think the network thought is the big takeout, I think, at least for me in this conversation, the value of the networks and the value to find your own role in relation to that network, how to feed it with good stuff and how to be supported by that network. We're moving into a world where we're building stuff together, and we just need to find our own assets into that world and train our capabilities of team working. So to, with low friction, start new teams and solve problems and dissolve them and start new teams again. And I think that's something you need to practice and be good at.
That's great. Thank you so much. How could anybody contact you?
I'm on our website, brittany.se, or at thepark.se.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you for watching or listening to this episode. I hope that you took a great lesson from it, and if you liked it, don't forget to subscribe, comment, or leave a review. I can't wait to read that. See you next week. You're awesome. And remember, whether you're starting a new company or you need some design or marketing services, Media Brew is always there for you. Go to mediabrew.se and check how awesome this company is.